Hey Kyle, what's up, buddy?
Doing good, Sergio. Thanks for having me on here.
No problem. So just for our viewers, I've been doing these inspirational or positive articles when it comes to drivers that I meet on a daily basis, and a few hand-selected ones made it to the blog. So Kyle is one of them. He drives in LA, Los Angeles, and I've known him for what is it now, over a year? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been about a year.
Yeah. So, his article was a successful Los Angeles driver, and he was making really, really good money, up to 3K a week in most weeks. And he learned the game pretty quick. And then, now I'm gonna let him speak and explain to drivers what he does, what kind of car he drives, all that good stuff. So you have the floor, sir.
So basically, I just started driving with Uber and Lyft. Actually, Uber starting January 17th of last year. I had a Tesla Model Y that I bought for my real estate business. And I was like, hey, maybe I could drive, Uber so I could kind of meet some, homeowners and, sellers and, get to know the lay of the land. So kind of that's how I got started, and I did some research on YouTube about like how much can you make doing Uber. And I remember they were saying something about you can make 2,000 a week. I was like, wow, that's pretty good. So the first week I decided to go out there with Uber. I pretty much like went like accept every ride. So I was driving all over the place. And I remember after the first week, telling my wife, like, this was like the hardest I worked, like, in I don't know how long. And I believe I made like, literally that week, I made like maybe six or 700. And like, I drove like 50 hours, went everywhere, didn't know anything about dead miles. I just took whatever trip. And I was like, these guys on YouTube, they're lying. There's no way you can make 2,000 on this thing. But I was like, well, I'm not going to quit after, 1 week. So I go ahead, went ahead and tried it again the second week. Pretty much a similar, same thing, but, I had some promotions from Uber. So, it got a little better. So, I think I got close to 1,000. So I was like, okay, that's better, but still was nowhere near, where I thought it was going to be. And I was like, I knew I was going to save some money on maintenance and wear and tear on the car because I have a Tesla, electric car, save on the gas. But I was like, okay, let me do some more research. So I started, doing research on YouTube and found, I believe, Rideshare and a bunch of other, just YouTubers, and started watching some of their videos, learning about, kind of being better positioned and kind of, use those videos in combination with my background, just being always being a gamer. I kind of took this driving as a kind of like a game where the dollar is the points. And so I decided to, give it another week, and I tried that. And I believe like by third week, I was making like 1,200. So now I feel like, well, maybe this 2,000 is reachable. And I started, like becoming more choosy about the type of rides I was picking, especially on long trips, because I was just driving back from Riverside was like stupid, and I didn't know the area, and I was like, I was in the ghettos, and I was like picking up prostitutes, and I was like, this is like crazy, and so just constantly try to learn how I could optimize my time and optimize my car. And I believe, it was about a month and a half is when I hit my, first 2,000. And that's when I feel like, you know what, it's like maybe I could even quit doing real estate and do this, full time. And it was like so good at the time. I was like literally, if you were out there and you put in the time, you can make money. And, thinking in real estate, it was kind of like different because you could spend a lot of time and hours on end with your clients, and basically at the end, after a month, you could basically make no money because one, they decided not to buy, two, they went with somebody else, or they didn't hire you. So I was like, you know what? It's like with Uber and Lyft, I think it was really something I could, if I put in the time, I know I was going to get X dollar. Question is how I could optimize it by being, smarter driver and, learning to do it better.
Right.
And I
So,
started, playing around.
yeah, so we always say on the rideshare guy, right? Work smart, not hard. So it took you about a month and a half to figure out which, in most drivers' cases, it takes months and months and months, and then they quit, right? So the two good things you did is you didn't quit, number one, and two, you figured out to be the most efficient driver and make the most amount of money. And so when you said you were a gamer, and we know there is definitely gamification happening in all these apps, right, with the colors and bells and all the whistles, right? So that probably did help you, right? I mean, to just kind of apply those strategies to your driving.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't really, have a mentor per se in person, but I just use different channels like Rideshare Guide and other YouTubers and to just, learn tricks. And I really, believe it or not, in the beginning, I really thought I was playing like Grand Theft Auto, where I'm just like driving around all over the town, just crazy and picking up drivers and dropping them off, another space. And, I had a really good promotion in Pasadena where I was just making a killing because like after 9, they were offering $4 extra. And then with that, with the weekly, promotions they were doing and a surge, I was like literally making like $14 on these like minimum trips. And I was just killing it. And it's like, by the time I got to, I think from January till March, I was driving like 60 to 80 hours a week, but I was, making, over 3,000. I believe like my April, I made like over 13,000. And I was like, man, this is like better money than I was doing real estate.
Yeah.
Sure, I was like driving like crazy, but I was having fun. And it was just like I said, it was a game to me.
Yeah. But
And so when
but you did though, see, you did something really important that a lot of drivers don't do, which is have a strategy, have a plan, right? I talk about it all the time, the 3 Ps, right? Patience, position, and planning. And it seems like you did all three, especially the position and the planning side, because you created a script for yourself on a daily basis to maximize your earnings. And sure enough, the results from, what was it, 600, 800 the first week, right?
it was like 700, yeah.
Yeah, 700 to over 3,000. I mean, that's 4x. So it goes to show that getting out there and willy-nilly driving, accepting every trip or every request is not the way to be successful at this gig. So
Absolutely. Like knowing your, city you're driving and knowing the different, peaks and times, the surges, and obviously taking advantage of whatever, free money that's, Uber and Lyft, sends to you, you have to utilize that because without like stacking your, bonuses, it just, doesn't make sense to like drive around like ants and try to make money in this business because, as the business kind of got tougher because, that, like I said, I was like the top of the, curve as far as, my revenue, April and June and May, but then, when the fall came, like I hit a wall. And at the time, it was like real tempting because, I was like, I'm not making anywhere near what I was making back in April. There seems to be a lot more drivers out there. And he was like, it's so tempting to take, like start like compromising my strategy where maybe I should just take, whatever trip I can so I can make X amount of dollars. Is just like almost like was like a struggle within myself because I felt like a lot of times it was almost like a FOMO, fear of missing out because like it just killed me when I'm on like Uber doing some minimum fare trip that took 15 minutes by making $4, and then I would get a Lux ride that comes in while I have a passenger in the car, and that ride was going to pay me $20 for basically the same amount of trip. It just killed me. I was like, like I just hated myself and I hated the ride. It's like I'm cursing at the passenger under my breath. I was like, why, now? And it always seems to like I would get these Lux trips when I was doing like min fare trip on Uber. or vice versa, and like kind of made me mad. And so I really just became like firm that you know what, if there's no surge, no trip. It's like it had to be like a set minimum standard for me to get my car moving. And being having a Tesla allowed me to like literally sit at a Starbucks at a parking lot and just watch YouTube, watch videos, watch more rideshare videos and other YouTubers, and basically pass my time because I rather wait for that Lux ride that was going to pay me $30 for that trip than to take a $4 trip and miss out on one. So I was like, I said I'm not going to do that, and I'd rather be sane than be pissed every other drive.
Yeah.
So
Well, the
that's
thing,
kind of how
yeah,
it
I
ended
mean, the
up.
thing you figured out is quality over quantity when things
Yeah,
got tougher, right? Initially, you were all quantity over quality because the quests were great, the
yep.
bonuses were great, the incentives were great, everything was great. But then we know the variability in this business, right? I mean, in certain weeks, I'm sure the promotions they were offering was close to 30, 40% of your revenue per week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the promotions completely dried up, and I literally like not even drive Uber anymore. I do most of my drives with just a Lux, because that pays me the highest per miles, per minute in miles. So I just wait for Lux ride, and I basically go out there, 5:36 in the morning, and if I get good trips, whatnot, then I'll try to make my couple $100, and then I come home, by 12 o'clock. And basically that's my day, now at least, because like I said, I'm not going to sit out there taking minimum fare, no surge trips or sit, basically waiting, for hours and end for a good one. So, yeah, definitely changed my the outlook on this gig economy. And I think, the main thing I want to take away is that, this game or this, gig is really always like fluid. It's just amazing because a lot of times Uber and Lyft, they're like sending out updates to the app, like, without notice. And like you can't just stay with a one strategy and think you're going to just succeed for the rest of your gig economy because, Uber is smart, Lyft is smart. They're trying to pay you the least amount of money for, using your time, and you have to just be able to understand that and basically set a standard for yourself, because I think it's like so tempting, and I get it because like people are so desperate this time because of the inflation and all that, like to just take whatever the trip because they're out there just trying to make X amount of dollars. But if we as a collective, like raise our standards, right? I think it would be like basically help us, everybody as a collective over long term, because it would force the Uber and Lyft algorithm to increase the pay because they're like, well, what's the point of raising or giving promotion when these guys are going to drive anyways,
Yeah.
right? So like you're basically feeding into the algorithm that what they're doing is acceptable to us or to you. And I'm like, not to me, because I was like, if this is gonna be like this, I'm not gonna keep driving because I'm not gonna drive for pennies on the dollar. And
Yeah.
it's like before, I think it was like more about making the money, but now it's like as the fares went down, the demands got down. I have to now look at more stuff. Like now I have to like really think about my expenses too, because before I really didn't look at expenses. But now you have to, capture all the expenses to, analyze the ride to make sure that if you're going to make this much money, how much of that money is going to be, lost to expense, and what is your net take after all that expense? And God knows it's going to be a lot harder to calculate that on a gas car versus an electric car, just
Yeah.
because like I have literally no car maintenance.
Yeah, but you know what? At this time, let's talk a little bit about that. So you bought your Tesla Model Y to use it in your real estate business because it's impressive, and your clients, I'm sure, would appreciate you showing up in a Model Y than to any other beater, right?
Well, I
So,
mean, I had a BMW too, but I mean, like I said, it was more for like, because I like electric car. I was a fan of the autonomous driving, self-driving, and that was one of the big reasons I got it. But it wasn't because I didn't buy it to drive for Uber. It was just
right.
like after a couple of months, I had a car. I'm like, my God, the gas price is so high. It's like
Yeah, but
this.
your
Like,
timing was great though. Your timing was great because right when you
yeah,
bought
I
the
got in a
car,
very good time.
I mean, gas went up to $7 in California, as we know, right?
$8 on Beverly and
So
La Cienega.
yeah, and I mean, so talk a little bit about that because it seems like right when things slowed down on the Uber side, I mean, you were multi-apping anyway, but then initially you were mostly Uber, right? I would
Yes,
say
I was almost
90%.
100% Uber
Yeah, and now you're
until
100% Lyft.
yeah. I mean, at the beginning, I didn't do really Lyft because I thought like Lux ride was so unreliable. Like literally, I feel like sometimes you get one, or two, and I was like, I'm not gonna, have an app on, with just one or two trips. But then like during the summer, like by I think March and April, it's like it started really picking up, and I'm like, wow, I really like these Lux trips.
Yep.
And so I started, doing just strictly Lux, and I was making really good money on Lux, and I prefer it right now. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're
um,
making probably less overall, but also
yeah,
you're putting less miles on your car, right?
oh yeah, yeah. I'm
And
definitely not driving 60, 80 hours. I'm probably driving 40 hours max. I
yeah,
mean, not even driving. I'm out there 40 hours.
yeah,
But in terms of my active time, which is always debatable, what's your real hour, but at the end of the day, like I basically are going to stay out there if Uber and Lyft are showing me the money and giving me quality trips that I feel is beneficial to myself.
yeah. I mean, for a 1 year driver, you went through a great cycle at the start, which all credit to you. You figured out how to maximize and be the most efficient you can be. And now you've gone through another change, as we know, with upfront prices that showed up in LA a couple, 3 months ago. So you keep pivoting. Like that's what I tell to a lot of drivers. When they zig, you have to learn how to zag. You can't
Yeah,
just be stale and you can't just say with the same mindset, you go, well, this is what I was doing. It was working before, and I don't keep doing that. That's the definition of insanity, right? You keep
yeah,
doing the same thing, expecting different results. Well, that's not going to happen. In
yeah,
any business, it doesn't happen, but you have to pivot. You have to learn how to pivot. You have to move. When they move, you have to have a counter move. Otherwise, you're going to die. And I know a lot of drivers in LA, as you do yourself, they're not making the money they were making. But what you're now paying attention to is very important that we talk on Show Me the Money quite a bit, is profitability. You know, a Lyft Lux ride is a lot more profitable. One of them could replace 4 UberX rides. So
yeah,
why not, right? So to me, that's the most important thing that we're trying to convey. And then you said it yourself perfectly, right? You're making less money, but you're also putting less wear and tear on your car. You're driving less. It's not about always money. We know there's going to be cool periods and hot periods in rideshare. At the moment, you correctly said there are too many drivers. Demand is also down. That's why, the money is not there, but the money is going to be there, when things get settled down again. So I want to talk to you a little bit about, when I wrote the article, right, we put all these things in there, and then, it seems like you had a plan B, right? Because first you were in real estate, then you were doing Uber and Lyft full time. I'm sure you squeezed some Uber Eats in there or delivery in there as well. But then
yeah.
now
I
you've
believe I
pivoted.
was the one who taught you how to do Uber Eats.
Yes,
You were like,
you're
you were
definitely my
adamant
mentor.
about not doing it. I was like, hey, I was sending you some pictures of some of the Uber Eats orders, and you're like, what?
Yeah, no,
Now
you're
I
my
think that's
mentor
what
on
you
that
do.
one. You're definitely my mentor when it comes to Uber Eats. So no doubt. But so let's talk a little bit about the future, right? I mean, you've been doing this only a year, which is fascinating to me. To have all this success in 1 year is a lifetime for another rideshare driver for sure. So what are you trying to get out of the gig world, right? And are you going to go back to real estate? We know rates are high now. Real estate market is not really that
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
um, what is your plan B, if you have a plan B, and then talk to viewers a little bit about that.
yeah. I mean, I think like with a lot of the YouTubers and yourself, this was a full-time job for me, but the thing that was really the I guess the most uh, beneficial thing that I liked about it was the freedom and flexibility of my time. right? Like I could literally drive anytime I want to go, and I could stop anytime I want to go. If I have some, birthday I need to go to, I didn't have to call in sick or whatever. And so that's the flexibility that this, gig was offering me that was most attractive aside from the money. And being a basically an independent contractor for most of my life, I've just never been the W-2 kind of guy. So like I cannot like envision myself, which is hard to like imagine that I have to be at an office by 8 o'clock and clock out at 5 o'clock and answer to a boss. And it's like, sure, maybe there are jobs I could do where I can make more than I can doing, driving around all over LA. But it's like it's at a cost of my freedom. And so that's where right now I'm a little bit torn because, before, I had like, when I started, I told my wife, I said, okay, my Tesla was $56,000. I said, let me see if I could, make, 56,000 driving this car. And then if I do that this year, then I would literally be paying off the car, doing Uber. And, as crazy as it sounded or as dumb as it sounded at the time, like within 6 months, I was able to make 56,000 driving. And I was like, that's when I literally like told my wife is like, maybe this is, possibly something that we could do as a business because now it's making good money. And then she was like, well, like, you always drive the Tesla. So like, we should get another one. So I was like, wait a minute, like, why don't we just get a whole fleet of Tesla just because then we could possibly use that to, rent it out as, something like a rental. And so I looked into, some of the, businesses where, I could, lease the cars and rentals, but it just seemed like a lot of, like maintenance and like logistically, it was hard because I was not in LA. I live in, Arcadia, which is about 45 minutes from LA. And if I was like in near LAX, this would be a like a no, no brainer. But just the logistic wise of being able to get the car over to LAX, which is most likely where you're going to get the business, just didn't seem like something that I want to tackle. So right now I think I'm kind of like looking at my options. It's like I am getting older, and I mean I'm 50. I'll be 51 next month. Um, so I'm not like looking for like necessarily like a full-time thing, but I've always been interested in just the startups, businesses and ventures. And so, I'm still looking, right now I'm actually like looking at different like autonomous driving companies. See, maybe I could get my foot in the door just because whether we like it or not, I think, that is, in the future. And, maybe I could find my, or leverage my experience of just being on the street, with a company that's looking for maybe autonomous drivers or, I mean, I like to be able to work with Tesla, but so that's something that I'm looking into to see if there's an opportunity there. And I don't know. We'll
Great.
see what
No,
the
I mean,
future
you know
holds.
what? So you did buy the second Tesla, and you could, put that on some, rental website like Turo, Hire Car, whatever, and create passive income. So you are looking to shift, pivot again, right? So you worked hard for a year, you got the fruits of your labor, paid off your car in less than 6 months or 6 months, which is incredible to me.
Yeah.
Bought your second Tesla. So to me, I think you're doing it exactly the way it should be done. Use these gig apps for what they are, right? You work hard, you hit it hard. But the most important thing, a lot of drivers, all we do is, complain. We hear complaints, oh, this, oh, that. Well, there's good parts of it, and you're an example of the good part of the gig economy, that you accomplished a couple of very important goals, financial as well. And now you're looking for an outlet. Doesn't mean you're going to quit driving. You're going to still keep driving, because I know what you make, and I think it's very decent. I mean, it beats a W-2 job any day, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean, like I said, that's one of the big, the benefit of this, job is like, look, I went out 6:30, I'm home before 11 or 12, and I could do whatever I want and maybe go take a nap.
Yep.
But I think, a lot of the drivers that are out there are making it harder on themselves. And I know it's so easy just watching some of these live chat, YouTube, videos and seeing the live chat, like the negativity. But I mean, it seems like almost counterproductive because instead of thinking about how you could beat the system, you are basically like, I don't know, almost like it's a predatory uh, algorithm where you're letting the algorithm eat you alive because it's turning you into an angry machine
Yep.
and turning you into desperate people having to accept bare minimum rights for basically like, not valuing your time. And it's like, I think it's important, Sergio and, a lot of the, other YouTubers, say is like, you got to value your time, know your worth. You're worth more than, $2 for a 15-minute, trip,
Yep.
right? Because Uber is definitely not making $2 on that trip off of you. And I think, you just got to learn to say no
Yeah.
and, put your foot down
Yeah.
and wait for the better trips. Because if we all do this, I think it's going to help all of us in the long run.
I agree. Yeah. So I mean, I think you summed it up pretty well. I don't think I could have said any better myself. Any final words? I mean, I'm sure we're gonna be in touch. We're always in touch, and I appreciate your time. But if you have a couple of you know, final words or advice to drivers, let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, my final advice will be, obviously, I believe, that you and, Rideshare Guide are an advocate for the drivers. And if every driver learn to educate themselves by watching these kind of channels and basically improve their skills in rideshare, then I think it's going to help them. And know your worth, no surge, no trip, and just be safe out there.
I agree. All right, thank you so much, and
All right, thank you, Sergio.
we'll see you soon.
Okay, have a good day.
Bye.